For 18 months, we survived a boss who roasted us with a brass bell until the entire office finally stood up together.
I should have known from day one. I walked into that office with my thrift store blazer, clutching a resume that looked better on paper than I felt in real life. It was a small marketing agency in downtown Chicago, maybe 25 people. One floor of a building with the coffee shop downstairs that permanently smelled like burnt espresso. The interview had felled off. The CEO, let's call him Gary, asked me questions like, "Do you consider yourself loyal?" And "How do you handle being yelled at?" I thought it was some kind of stress test. Rookie mistake. I should have run. Instead, I smiled like an idiot and said I was a team player. My first day, I learned quickly. Gary didn't manage, he performed. His office door stayed open so everyone could hear him berate people. He believed in public accountability, which was corporate speak for screaming at interns until they cried. He'd call people out in meetings for bad vibes. He had a bell, an actual brass bell he'd ring when someone screwed up big. He thought it was hilarious. I told myself I'd last 6 months, get experience, beef up the resume, move on. But 6 months turned into a year, then 18 months, because the economy was rough and, hey, I needed rent money. Survival mode. By then, I'd seen things. Employees cycling in and out so fast their names barely stuck. A designer fired mid-meeting because Gary didn't like her haircut. A client presentation where he took credit for an intern's entire campaign, then mocked her immature ideas right after. The office was a revolving door of broken spirits, and I was becoming one of them. At first, I thought I could play the game, keep my head down, do my work, avoid the bell. But Gary had a sixth sense for weakness. If you were quiet, he'd needle you. If you spoke up, he'd twist your words. He called me professor because I wore glasses, and anytime I offered a suggestion, he'd sneer, "Well, the professor has spoken." Everyone would laugh nervously, I'd force a smile, die a little inside, and keep typing. What kept me there was my team. We had this unspoken bond, like war buddies in a foxhole. There was Sarah, the project manager who kept snacks hidden in her desk for everyone. Jorge, the designer who could make magic out of nothing. And Mia, another copywriter who whispered jokes to me during Gary's tirades that kept me from quitting on the spot.
We all hated Gary, but we clung to each other. It was survival by solidarity. Then came the pitch, the one that changed everything. We landed a big client, a national food brand with a budget big enough to keep the lights on for a year. Gary was ecstatic. He called it our golden goose and told us this pitch had to be flawless, which meant, of course, weeks of chaos, impossible deadlines, and Gary's particular brand of leadership. He divided us into teams. I was writing copy with Mia, pulling late nights, downing Red Bulls, trying to spin chicken nuggets into poetry. Jorge was designing mock-ups that looked like they belonged in Times Square. Sarah was holding it all together with sheer caffeine and rage. The presentation day arrived. We piled into the conference room, bleary-eyed, hearts pounding. The clients filed in, sharp suits and polite smiles. Gary strutted in last, like a peacock, and launched into his spiel. At first it went well. Jorge's visuals wowed them. Mia's taglines landed. Sarah smoothed over technical glitches with practiced charm. Then Gary decided to improvise. He started mocking one of our own ideas, one he had approved days earlier, right in front of the clients. He singled me out, sneering, "Professor here thought this was clever. Do you find it clever? I don't." The clients shifted uncomfortably. My face burned hot. Mia kicked me under the table in sympathy. We pushed through. The clients thanked us, said they'd be in touch. Gary left the room grinning like he'd nailed it. The second the door shut, his grin vanished. He slammed the bell on the table so hard it rang in everyone's ears. "Embarrassing! I carry this company, and you clowns drag me down." I wanted to disappear. But the thing about humiliation, it builds. It sits in your chest, simmering, and sooner or later, it explodes.
The client email came in the next morning at 6:12 a.m. One of those polite corporate messages that sounds like a compliment until you read it twice. Lots of, "We love the energy, great start, and we're excited to see where this goes," followed by a paragraph of bullet points that basically translated to, "Change everything." They wanted a different tone, different colors, different call to action. Not unusual. Pitches are revisions with better lighting. Gary forwarded the email to the whole company with the subject line, "This is what happens when I let you drive." No grading, no sign-off, just a command to rebuild the deck by EOD and a list of insultingly vague action items like "make it smarter but more casual" and "less try-hard, more iconic." I stared at my screen and wondered what part of iconic was actionable. We set up in the war room, the big conference table covered in laptops, Post-its, and half-eaten granola bars. Sarah printed the client notes and started slicing them into categories. Jorge opened a dozen files and went silent in that designer way that means his brain is sprinting. Me and I traded the 1,000-yard stare of copywriters about to write the same line 40 different ways. Gary did drive-bys. That's what we called it when he paced the room, hands clasped behind his back like a budget dictator, then swooped in to peck at one screen, peck at another, drop a grenade, and walk out. This headline screams "trying too hard." These colors feel poor. Why are we apologizing for selling? They want to be sold to. Each comment contradicted the one before it. It was like trying to paint a mural during an earthquake. At noon, he pulled me aside. "Professor, you're chatty in the wrong ways. Your words sound like they're wearing a tie." He leaned in so close I could see the tiny burst blood vessels in his eyes. "Give me copy that feels like a wink from a hot bartender, not a lecture." He clapped my shoulder like we were buddies and left. I wrote 15 versions of the same headline. Mia wrote 20. We stuck them to the wall, argued, swapped, argued more. Gary returned, scanned them, and picked the two we'd agreed were weakest. These, they're dangerous. He loved the word dangerous because it made him feel like Don Draper. I swallowed my objection. Dangerous is code for "I will blame you later." We rebuilt the deck by 5:40 p.m. Sarah sent it with a tight, professional email. "Per your feedback, revised concepts attached." Then she slumped in her chair and rubbed her temples like she could push the headache back in.
At 7:03 p.m., Gary called an all-hands. He didn't even wait for people to sit. He smacked the brass bell with a grin. "Ring-a-ding, let's talk about mediocrity." My stomach turned. He put the deck on the big screen and narrated our work like a roast. "Here's where we apologize for existing." Click. "Here's where professor uses 5 words when 2 will do." Click. "This visual says community college PowerPoint." Click. He laughed at his own jokes. A few newer employees chuckled weakly. The rest of us watched the carpet and disassociated. Mia's jaw tightened. Jorge's hand shook. Sarah stared straight ahead like she was defusing a bomb in her mind. When it ended, Gary announced weekend hours were now mandatory optional. He winked. "If you're a team player, I'll see you Saturday." He strolled out humming. Saturday morning, we were all there. Coffee cups like a graveyard, eyes sticky with no sleep. We actually made good progress. Without Gary hovering, ideas clicked. Jorge found a color system that sang. Mia and I cracked a line that felt fresh. Warm without being corny, direct without being salesy. For an hour, we remembered why we took these jobs. Gary arrived at noon and detonated the room again. He wanted punch. He wanted teeth. He took Mia's headline and added a word that turned it from clever to mean. He pushed a claim into the subcopy that crossed the legal line. Sarah flagged it. He rolled his eyes. "We're not writing a court brief, we're selling nuggets." He hit save and told us to quit hiding behind compliance. By Sunday, we were fried. Sarah, who never cried, had tears sitting on her lower lashes like they were waiting for permission. I walked to the bathroom and stared at myself under fluorescent lights that made everyone look like they hadn't slept in a year. My reflection looked like a cautionary tale. Monday morning at 8:11 a.m., the client's legal team replied, not to Gary, to Sarah. They CC'd our shared account and wrote, "We cannot approve claims implying X benefit without substantiation. Please confirm this language was included in error." They attached screenshots. The sentence in question was exactly the one Gary had jammed in. Before Sarah could craft a diplomatic reply, Gary barged in, face flushed. "Who put this in?" He didn't wait for an answer. He rang the bell 3 times like a man summoning ghosts. "We do not hand our clients ammo to shoot us. Who owns this?" His eyes landed on me. "Professor?" I opened my mouth to say the truth. "You did this, Gary." He cut me off. "Never mind, we'll deal with it later. Everyone to the conference room." He stood us up in a line like we were at inspection. He berated Jorge for its soft visuals. He told Sarah she was hiding behind email etiquette, whatever that means. He called me a fragile because her voice shook when she tried to defend the headline he'd mangled. When it was my turn, he smirked. The problem with you, Professor, is that you think good writing is a parlor trick. It's not. It's a knife. You don't know how to stab with it. I felt the room tilt. Noise fizzed in my ears like a TV with bad reception. People were staring at the floor, the wall, their shoes. No one met my eyes. I swallowed and tasted metal. After the meeting, HR pinged me on Slack. Can you pop into a quick chat? Our HR was one woman, Lena, who had the permanent look of someone trying to hold water in her hands. I joined the call and she smiled that corporate pain smile. Hey, so Gary's concerned about alignment? He wants to put you on a PIP, Performance Improvement Plan, the pre-termination appetizer. What's the metric? I asked. My voice sounded calm from far away. What exactly am I improving against? She glanced at her second monitor. Tone? Proactivity? Fight is the word here? She winced. Look, I know. Just document everything, okay? Document everything.
That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid there listening to the radiator clank and my upstairs neighbor pace, and I replayed the past 18 months. The bell, the nicknames, the public roasts, the way we all laughed along so we wouldn't be next. Shame is a virus. It spreads through silence. At 2:17 a.m., a new email hit our all-company inbox by mistake. Subject, RE dead weight. It was from Gary to the board liaison. Yes, our tiny agency had 2 quiet investors. We forgot they existed until tax season. We're bleeding margin because the creative bench is soft, he wrote. The professor is a weak link, me is emotional, Sarah's a hall monitor. I need latitude to fire fast without severance. Optics be damned. He meant to send it from his private account. He sent it from his company one. To the all-staff list. For 6 seconds, the office was quiet. Then Slack lit up like a slot machine. Did you see? Holy, is this real? I watched the 3 dots pop and disappear as people typed in deleted panic. Gary deleted the email from the server within 10 minutes. IT later said he woke the admin up and demanded an emergency purge. But the internet never forgets. Screenshots were already everywhere. Sarah's, Jorge's, mine, a junior dev who never spoke posted a single line in #general. I have receipts. At 7 a.m., Gary called another all-hands. He tried to spin, said someone had hacked his account, said the message was taken out of context. He smacked the bell like a metronome. This is why we need loyalty. This is why I test you. Something in me snapped. Maybe it was the email. Maybe it was watching Nia's hands tremble while she held back tears. Maybe it was Lena's resigned face in the corner, already opening a new PIP template. I stood up.
My voice surprised me. Steady, not loud. We're done being your punchline. The room went very still. Gary's smile froze. Sit down, Professor. No, I said. We're going to the board with the email, with the client thread showing you inserted illegal copy, with the Slack logs of you ringing a bell every time you want to humiliate somebody, with the recordings. Jorge had quietly recorded a few meetings after a particularly bad blow-up. Illinois is a 2-party consent state, but many of these were Zooms with explicit recording in progress banners Gary himself had turned on. Gary's eyes flared. He went red, then white. You are fired. Sarah stood up next to me. If he goes, I go. Mia stood. Me too. Jorge stood. All of us. Around the table, chairs scraped. One by one, people rose, even the junior dev. Even Lena, whose lip trembled and who said softly, I'll send the board everything. Gary opened his mouth and closed it again, a fish out of water. He reached for the bell. His hand hovered. He didn't ring it. In the hallway, someone's phone buzzed. The client. The revision deck had landed. We all stared as Sarah opened the email. It was short. We'd like to proceed to contract, contingent on assignment of a new account lead. Nobody exhaled, but the air shifted. Gary tried one more time. You think you have leverage? I built this. I can replace any of you tomorrow. Then do it, I said. Replace us. But the board will have a different replacement in mind. He lunged for my laptop. Jorge stepped between us without thinking. Gary stumbled, clipped the table, and the bell toppled, hitting the floor with a dull, unceremonious thunk. No ring. Just dead metal. We didn't cheer. We didn't high-five. We filed out. To our desks, to
to gather our things, to forward copies of every relevant thread to a private archive. Lena sent a calendar invite to the investors with the subject, Urgent, Workplace Conduct, and Client Risk. The junior dev posted the company handbook clause about maintaining dignity and respect. It was almost funny. I thought that was the end. But meltdowns don't end cleanly. They splatter. And Gary had one more trick up his sleeve, the kind that doesn't just risk a pitch, but the company itself. That's when I decided to stop surviving and start fighting back, properly, carefully, with the kind of documentation even a peacock can't preen away.
After that meeting, the office felt like it had been struck by lightning. Everything looked the same sticky carpets, the same burnt coffee smell from downstairs, the same hum of the printers, but nobody acted the same. It was like we had all seen behind the curtain and realized the wizard was just a guy with a cheap bell and a fragile ego. Gary tried to reset the narrative. The very next morning, he came in whistling, wearing a brand new suit, holding a tray of donuts like he was suddenly everyone's favorite uncle. He set them down and said, "Rough week, team, but let's get back to basics. Family sticks together." Nobody touched the donuts. He spent the day micromanaging in overdrive, bouncing between desks with fake cheer. He complimented Jorge's bold use of space. He told Sarah she was the backbone of the team. He called me professor again, but softer this time, like he thought he could sand the insult into a nickname. Every word rang false. Behind the scenes, though, we were busy. Sarah and Lena had already set up a shared drive. Jorge uploaded his recordings. I added screenshots of Slack threads, including his all-company email about dead weight. Mia compiled client correspondence showing his changes were the ones that caused legal pushback. It felt treasonous, but also righteous. By Friday, the board responded. They wanted a meeting, private, off-site. Gary didn't know yet. That weekend, he sent out a company-wide calendar invite titled Mandatory Culture Recharge Retreat. Location, a dingy co-working space he'd rented by the hour. Agenda, vision alignment, loyalty exercises, and I kid you not, trust falls. Half the office accidentally had other commitments. The rest of us showed up because we wanted him to think we were still playing along. It was worse than we expected. He made us write pledges about our dedication to the company. He had us list our weakest teammates anonymously on index cards. He even pulled out the bell, set it on the table, and said, "This isn't humiliation, it's accountability. You all secretly love it." That was the moment I knew he was finished. Not because of what he said, but because nobody even flinched anymore. We just wrote our cards, folded them, and shared side glances that said, 2 more days. The board will see everything in 2 more days. On Monday morning, Lena forwarded us the meeting invite. Wednesday, 10 a.m., board offices. No Gary. We counted down the hours. But Gary must have sent something. On Tuesday night at 11:43 p.m., he sent another all-company email. Subject line, "It's me or them." The body of the email was pure meltdown. He accused certain employees of conspiring against him. He named me, Mia, and Sarah directly. He said we were toxic, selfish, traitors, and that he would not let the cancer win. He BCC'd clients. He CC'd his lawyer. Screenshots flew across our Slack channels. The subject line alone was enough to bury him. The next morning, when Gary stormed into the office, he found the board waiting in the conference room. 2 men in suits, 1 woman with a legal pad, all with the cold expressions of people about to make a decision. They asked us in, one by one. They asked for context, for evidence. We handed them everything: the drive, the recordings, the emails, the Slack threads. Jorge even produced the trust fall agenda as comic relief. By the time they finished, the investors didn't look angry. They looked embarrassed. Gary tried to interrupt, pounding the table, calling it a coup. The board asked him to step outside. He refused. Security was called. Watching him get escorted out of his own office, red-faced and sputtering about loyalty, was surreal. The bell stayed behind on the table. We didn't cheer. We didn't high-five. We sat there in shock as the board announced they were reviewing leadership transitions. Translation: Gary was out, permanently. The meltdown was over. The empire of humiliation had collapsed. But the mess he left behind?
That was just beginning.
The day Gary was escorted out, the office was silent for hours. Phones rang, emails pinged, Slack buzzed, but nobody moved. We sat at our desks in shock, staring at the space where he used to strut and slam his bell. For 18 months, every part of our daily rhythm had been shaped by his presence. The tension when he walked by, the nervous laughter when he made a joke, the way we timed bathroom breaks to avoid his tirades. Suddenly, he was gone. You'd think it would feel like freedom. It didn't. Not right away. It felt like a bomb had gone off, and we were still waiting for the dust to settle. The board sent a follow-up email that afternoon. Effective immediately, Gary is no longer with the company. We will be working closely with leadership to ensure continuity. Please continue your important work. The language was corporate bland, but the implication was huge. We were free. That week was chaos. Clients were nervous. Some had seen Gary's late-night meltdown email. Sarah and I spent hours on the phone reassuring them that, yes, the company still existed, yes, their campaigns were still on track, and no, they wouldn't have to deal with Gary anymore. To our surprise, many of them were relieved. One marketing director literally sighed out loud when Sarah said, "Gary is no longer involved." Internally, though, the damage showed. People wandered around like survivors after a storm. We joked less. We jumped whenever someone raised their voice, even if it was just excitement over lunch orders. Mia admitted she'd had panic attacks every Sunday night for months. Jorge confessed he'd secretly applied to jobs every week, but hadn't had the energy to follow through. Sarah said she'd been seeing a therapist just to cope with bell trauma. The bell sat on the conference table for a week. Nobody touched it. Finally, the junior dev, the quiet one who'd posted, "I have receipts," picked it up, walked outside, and dropped it in the dumpster. No ceremony, just gone. We all watched through the window. When it hit the trash with a hollow clunk, something inside me loosened. But the board wasn't done with us. 2 weeks later, they called another all-hands. This time, the tone was different. They wanted to hear from us. What went wrong? What needed to change? Lena, who had been HR in name only under Gary, spoke up for the first time. People need to feel safe here. That has to come before profits. For the first time in my career, HR sounded like a human being instead of a liability shield. The board nodded. They promised new leadership, new policies, and new culture. We nodded back, skeptical but hopeful. Slowly, the office began to change. We had meetings where nobody got roasted, ideas got debated, not mocked. Jorge brought in donuts one morning and people actually ate them. Mia started cracking jokes again. Sarah stopped rubbing her temples every 10 minutes. Me? I documented everything. Not out of fear anymore, but out of habit. Every weird email, every client request, every project update, logged, filed, backed up. Trauma makes you meticulous. One night, long after everyone else had gone home, I sat at my desk staring at the empty chair where Gary used to sit. The office was quiet except for the hum of the heater. I realized I hadn't clenched my jaw all day. I hadn't waited for the next explosion. I walked out into the Chicago night, snow crunching under my boots, and felt lighter.
She said it was just girls' night, but following her led me straight to my best friend.
I've never been a jealous guy. That's not me trying to sound noble. I'm lazy. Jealousy takes energy, and most of the time I'd rather eat takeout and play Xbox. So when my girlfriend, Melissa, started acting a little off, I told myself not to be that guy. We've been together 3 years. We lived in a one-bedroom in Milwaukee. Nothing fancy, just enough room for us and our cat, Pickles, who hated me slightly less than he hated everyone else. Melissa worked in event planning. I worked in IT, which meant I was home a lot more than she was. She had long nights, weird weekends, endless networking mixers with free booze and name tags. At first, I believed the excuses. Flat tire, phone died, stayed late to help a client. No big deal. Everyone's got long days. But little things started stacking. She'd laugh at texts and then flip her phone over when I walked by. She started showering as soon as she got home, like clockwork. Her new perfume smelled expensive, sharp, the kind you wear when you want someone to notice. One night, she came home tipsy, tossed her purse on the counter, and collapsed on the couch. While she snored softly, her phone lit up. A message from someone saved as L. Just a single line. Had a great time. Can't stop thinking about it. My chest went cold. I wanted to wake her up, shove the phone in her face, demand answers. Instead, I froze. My hand shook as I put the phone back down like it was radioactive. I sat there in the dark, the blue glow of the screen burning into me, and told myself maybe Elle was a friend. Maybe Elle was a client. Maybe I was inventing paranoia. But deep down, I knew. That night was the first time I stayed up until sunrise, just watching her sleep. Not in a romantic way, in a who the hell are you really way.
The morning after that text from Elle, I moved through the apartment like a ghost. Melissa woke up hungover, groaned about her headache, kissed me on the cheek, and thanked me for putting up with her. I smiled back like nothing was wrong, but my chest felt like a cracked windshield. One good bump and the whole thing would shatter. At work, I couldn't focus. My job is basically digital babysitting, making sure networks behave and people stop clicking phishing emails. But every blinking cursor looked like a taunt. I kept hearing that text in my head. Had a great time. Can't stop thinking about it. By noon, I made a decision. I wasn't going to accuse her outright. Not yet. I needed proof. IT guys like me, we don't do anything without logs. So, I started observing. Not snooping at first, just noticing. She said her office had moved their weekly happy hour from Thursdays to Wednesdays. I checked her planner, still said Thursday. She suddenly hated sushi, even though we'd gone every other week for years. She started going for runs, even though the most exercise she'd done in 3 years was chasing Pickles when he stole her sock. The phone thing got worse. She'd leave it face down, carry it to the bathroom, sleep with it under her pillow. One night, while she showered, I sat on the couch and her phone buzzed. Face ID kept me locked out, but the preview lit up, L, can't wait for tomorrow. My stomach twisted. Tomorrow she was supposedly flying to Chicago for a client event. Funny, since her suitcase was empty. I confided in my buddy Dan over beers. Dan's blunt, the kind of friend who tells you when you've got barbecue sauce on your face and when your girlfriend might be screwing someone else. I told him about the texts, the perfume, the lies. He didn't hesitate. Dude, she's cheating. Don't gaslight yourself. Still, I wanted to be sure. Maybe I wanted to delay the inevitable. So I did something I'm not proud of. Melissa had given me her old iPad last year when she upgraded. She barely touched it. Same Apple ID as her phone. I charged it up, logged in, and held my breath. At first, nothing. Just apps, photos, old notes. Then I tapped into messages. There it was. A full thread with L. My blood went cold. Except L wasn't some random guy. It was Liam, my best friend since college. The text scrolled back weeks. Jokes, flirting, hotel plans, photos, nothing graphic, but enough. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I slammed the iPad shut so hard Pickles jumped off the couch and bolted. My hand shook. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to call them both right that second. Instead, I sat in silence for an hour. Just numb. I couldn't decide what hurt worst, that she cheated or that she did it with him.
Once you've seen the messages, you can't unsee them. Every word from her mouth became a lie in my ears. Every laugh, every casual brush of her hand against mine, fake, manufactured. I spent the next few days walking around like a zombie, rehearsing 100 different confrontations in my head. Option A, slam the iPad in front of her and scream. Option B, call Liam, tear him apart, ruin him. Option C, burn it all down in one dramatic Facebook post and watch them squirm. But then I remembered what Dan had said. Don't gaslight yourself. Proof wasn't enough. I needed the truth straight from her mouth. So I waited. That Friday, she told me she had a girls' night with coworkers. She put on that perfume again, the sharp, expensive one, and a black dress I hadn't seen since our anniversary. I kissed her on the cheek as she left, pretending to be the oblivious boyfriend, and as soon as the door shut, I grabbed my coat. I followed her. Not in a movie stalker way, I wasn't crouching behind mailboxes, but I knew the shortcuts downtown, the back streets, the parking garage routes. I trailed her from a distance, heart hammering. Sure enough, she didn't head toward her office or the trendy bar where her coworkers usually went. She walked 3 blocks and slipped into a quiet pub tucked between 2 office buildings, a place Liam and I used to go in college. My throat tightened. I waited across the street, pulse racing, until I saw him, Liam. Same smirk, same easy swagger, like nothing in the world could touch him. He hugged her, kissed her, right there under the neon sign. Something in me broke. I didn't plan what happened next. My body moved before my brain caught up. I crossed the street, pushed open the door, and walked straight up to him. The look on their faces was almost worth it. Melissa's eyes went wide, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Liam froze, then tried to recover with that half grin he always used to get us out of trouble in college. "Hey man, don't." My voice shook, but he carried. The bar went quiet. Melissa stammered, "It's not what you think." I laughed, not the funny kind, the bitter, hollow kind that makes people uncomfortable. Really, because I think my girlfriend and my best friend are screwing behind my back. And unless you've got an evil twin, that's exactly what this is. She tried again, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. "Save it. I saw the texts, the hotel plans, the whole thread." Her face crumpled. Liam muttered something about feelings, and it just happened. I wanted to hit him. I didn't. I just shook my head, every muscle in my body trembling with adrenaline. 3 years, I said to her. 10 years, I said to him. And this is what I get. I turned and walked out. My legs felt like jelly, but I didn't stop. Back at the apartment, I packed a bag. Essentials only. Pickles meowed, confused, as I shoved clothes into a duffel. Melissa called, texted, begged me to come back and talk. I ignored it. Dan showed up an hour later with beer and silence. He didn't ask questions, just sat with me in the wreckage. That night, lying on my buddy's couch with my cat curled against my side, I realized the confrontation hadn't given me closure. It hadn't made me feel better, it just confirmed the truth. And the truth was worse than any lie.
The days after the confrontation blurred together like one long, gray hangover. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating much either, unless you count potato chips and gas station coffee. Melissa kept blowing up my phone. Long texts, short texts, voicemails where she swung between sobbing apologies and furious anger. At first, I ignored her, but then she showed up at Dan's apartment, pounding on the door at midnight. Pickles hissed from the couch. Dan opened it a crack, saw her standing there in the hallway with mascara streaks and that same black dress from the bar, and looked back at me like, "Do you want me to handle this?" I shook my head. It was time. She came in, tried to hug me. I stepped back. "Please," she whispered, "it wasn't supposed to happen like this. I didn't mean to hurt you." That phrase, "I didn't mean to hurt you," is the oldest trick in the book. It's not an apology. It's a dodge. Like if intent was pure, the betrayal didn't count. My chest burned. "You planned it," I said flatly. "The texts, the hotels, the lies. You meant every step of it. You just didn't mean for me to find out." She started crying again, insisting it was confusing, that Liam had been there for her when I was distant. That was the dagger, shifting the blame onto me. Dan, bless him, finally snapped. "You don't get to do that," he said sharply. "You don't cheat on someone and then tell them it's their fault. Get out." She turned on him, eyes flashing. "This is between us." "No," I said, "not anymore. There is no us." Her sobs turned to rage. She called me heartless, said I'd regret it, said Liam was real in a way I never was. That stung more than I wanted to admit. Finally, Dan opened the door, and she stormed out, heels clacking down the hall like gunshots. Liam tried too. A long email arrived 2 days later. It was full of pseudo-philosophical garbage about chemistry and things you can't control. He even had the nerve to write, "I still want to be your friend." I deleted it without replying. For weeks, I floated in a fog. Work was a blur. Nights were worse. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and check my phone, half expecting another bombshell, half hoping Melissa would somehow undo the damage. That's the worst part of betrayal. Your brain keeps bargaining even when your heart knows better. But slowly, the fog lifted. I started running in the mornings, headphones blasting angry music until my lungs burned.
I spent weekends with Dan, who dragged me to basketball games and dive bars and made me laugh again. I reconnected with old friends I drifted from during my couple bubble. I adopted a routine where I'd cook one decent meal a day. Nothing fancy, just pasta or stir-fry, to remind myself I could take care of me. Melissa kept trying for a while. Random texts, a birthday card slipped under Dan's door, a voicemail where she said Liam had used her. Maybe it was true, maybe not. Didn't matter anymore. Eventually, she stopped. And one night, months later, I realized I hadn't thought about her all day. That small victory felt bigger than anything. Liam? I cut him off completely. 10 years of friendship, gone in one night. But here's the thing. Once the sting faded, I didn't miss him, not really. Turns out, most of our friendship was built on habit, not loyalty. Now, a year later, I'm in a better place. Different job, new apartment, Pickle's still glaring at me like I owe him rent. I'm not in a new relationship yet, but I'm okay with that. For the first time in years, I'm actually comfortable being on my own. Sometimes, late at night, I still replay that moment in the bar, their faces when they saw me. Shock, guilt, fear. And instead of pain, I feel something else. Relief. Because that was the moment I stopped living in their lie and started living in my truth.